Okay, so I was doing some reading and going over some stats from the 1999 season earlier this week, and I just thought to myself completely randomly, what if the current point system was used back then? That then led to me doing maths, which is a very dangerous place to visit, and eventually grew into what if the 1999 point system was used in 2019? So I guess let's do a point swap. Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to something completely different. A bit of an experiment, if you like. Curiosity got the better of me and I wanted to see what would happen if we swapped the 1999 point system and the 2019 point system around. Would we see any changes apart from obviously the points tallies changing? And could we even see a new world champion? That really is the sort of stuff that keeps me up all night. It's a weird life. Before we get on to the juicy content in this video though, and I promise that is the last time I ever say juicy content, it's time for a very quick history lesson. Now, over the years in Formula One, the point system has changed dramatically and used to be very different to the one that we use today. For example, back in 1950, points were handed out to the top 5 finishers with 8 points for a win, 6 for second, and then 4, 3 and 2 for the final 3 places. There was, as we see today, of course, also a point awarded for fastest lap, but interestingly enough, only a driver's best 4 results counted towards the final championship standings. Fast forward to 1961 and points began being awarded for the top 6 with 9 points for a win and 1 point for 6th place, and it was the best 5 results that counted towards the final standings. There were variations of that system all the way up until 1981, when all results were counted towards the end of season results for the next few years. But in 1985, it changed and a driver's best 11 results were what made up their final points tally. That stuck around until the start of the 1991 season, where all results counted and the point scoring system became 10 points for a win, 6 for second, 4 for third, down to 1 point for 6th place. If you're a long-time F1 viewer, that is definitely a point system that will sound familiar. That system remained until 2003 when it was decided to hand points out to the top 8 and was later given arguably its biggest shake-up to date in 2010, with points being awarded to the top 10 with 25 points for the win. That is, of course, largely the system that is still used today, but from the start of the 2019 season, drivers were once again awarded 1 additional point for fastest lap if they finished inside the top 10. So now that brief history lesson is out of the way, let's get to the point of this video. Thank you. What if we swap the 1999 and the 2019 point systems around? And no, before you ask, I have no life. This really is it. We will start with 2019 because, to be honest, not a lot changed. I didn't expect much to change, certainly not in the way of the championship anyway, but we did see a little bit of shuffling around in the midfield. So here are the final official standings for 2019. Obviously, as we already know, Lewis Hamilton champion, Bottas second, Verstappen third, and so on. And of course, that runs down to Sergio Perez in 10th place. But if we apply the 1999 point system, so again, that's 10 points for a win, 6 for second, 4 for third, etc. Just keep an eye on that battle between Sainz, Gasly, and Albon. Because as I bring the other table in, you can see that Alexander Albon actually moves up to 6th place, a point more than Gasly and Sainz have, who are tied on 14, with Pierre just finishing ahead of Sainz on countback. Of course, that's 2nd place in Brazil, proving critical for him. And I know it's an obvious thing to say because obviously we're awarding fewer points, but we've got so used to this new, if you like, point system that 15 points for 6th looks absolutely terrible. Daniel Ricciardo there in 9th place would only have picked up 6 points over the course of the season, and Daniel Kvyat made the top 10 with just 4 points. The Russian, of course, moving up from 13th place. Having a look at the second half of the table, a few drivers shifting around in here. Kimi Raikkonen would have moved up 1 place into 11th. Lance Stroll moving all the way up into 12th place. But you can see there the big losers. I feel like I'm doing a chart countdown here, but anyway. But the big losers in this one were Lando Norris and Sergio Perez dropping to 15th and 16th place. Again, another couple of drivers separated on countback. Kevin Magnussen down there in 17th place on just 1 point, and there were no points at all for Roman Grosjean, Robert Kubica or George Russell, but that 10th place finish in Germany was enough to keep Kubica ahead of Russell. In terms of the Constructors' Championship, there were a couple of changes. Toro Rosso would have pipped Renault to 5th place in the standings, so an even more miserable season for Renault. And Alfa Romeo, because of that 4th and 5th place finish for Raikkonen and Giovinazzi in Brazil, would have just finished ahead of Racing Point on countback, so that's 7th for them and 8th for Racing Point. And Williams would have picked up absolutely nothing. Like I say, not much has changed with this one, and if you guys go on to enjoy this video, think it's something that's interesting and would like me to turn it into a series, I'm probably just going to apply the current point system to classic seasons rather than swapping them around. But you live and learn. Right then, on to 1999, of course, with the 2019 point system. So that's 25 points for the win, 18 for second, 15 for third, all the way down to 1 point for 10th. And of course, there's also a point for fastest lap if the driver finished inside the top 10. And I can tell you now, there are more than a couple of changes in this one, some more significant than others. These were the official standings at the end of 1999. Mika Häkkinen became a double world champion, of course, pipping Eddie Irvine to the title by just a couple of points. What a season it was, 1999 as well. I highly recommend, if you've not already, going and watching the season review. Such a good season. Heinz-Harald Frentzen, he was third, David Coulthard fourth, Michael Schumacher fifth, his brother Ralph was in sixth, and your top 10 was rounded out by Rubens Barrichello, Johnny Herbert and Giancarlo Fisichella. Some cracking names on that list. I'm going to do this one slightly differently and work in reverse. So we're going to start with the bottom four in the championship with the adjusted points. Ignore Stefan Sarazan. Bless him, he only took part in one race, filling in for Luca Badoa at the Brazilian Grand Prix, so he was never really going to score anything. But you can see there, Luca Badoa does move up a place, with Ricardo Zonta dropping down one, but Jacques Villeneuve stays where he was. But not a massive amount to write home about there, let's be perfectly honest. Even with the adjusted points, it was a miserable season for BAR, and I remember them talking pre-season about possibly getting podiums and winning races. No. On to the next page, instantly you can see there Pedro De La Rosa getting knocked down a couple of places, Toru Takagi and Alex Zanardi both moving up. But look at Marc Genet there in the Minardi, 20 points if we adjusted this point system. To give you some idea, Minardi scored 38 points in their entire F1 history. So with Badoa's total to throw into that, that gives them 27. Pedro Diniz also drops a couple of places. He's on 24 points. Alesi and Panis both get bumped up as well. Alexander Wirtz stays 13th, but with a much healthier points tally, as again you would expect. And then you've got Jarno Trulli topping this page on 50 points, and Damon Hill, who had a miserable 1999, his last season, of course, in Formula One, on 49 points. And on the subject of miserable seasons, actually, it should be noted, John Alesi didn't have the best of ones either and moved on to Prost the next year. Didn't have too many nice things to say about Sauber mid-season. That all got a bit messy after Jean Alesi went against an agreement with Sauber, according to Peter Sauber anyway, with Alesi announcing shortly after the Hungarian Grand Prix to the press that he would not be staying at Sauber for 2000. But anyway, that's neither here nor there, just something I wanted to put in the video for no reason. This is it though, the bit you've probably all been waiting for, the top 10 of 1999 with the 2019 point system. How many times have I said that in this video? At least 300. This though has undoubtedly got the most dramatic change in this video, and in my weird, bizarre fantasy F1 world, Eddie Irvine is a Formula One world champion. 17 points clear of Mika Häkkinen in the end, who looks set to end up with just one world championship in this alternative reality, unless of course I can mix other points up as well. Frentzen and Coulthard, they don't move anywhere. Ralf Schumacher does move ahead of his brother, though, into 5th place, and what was a very good season, actually, for Ralf. Much better than I remembered. Very consistent and some strong performances, so credit there for him. That is, of course, aided, though, by the fact that Michael Schumacher sat most of the season out with a broken leg after crashing at Silverstone. Barrichello, he's not gone anywhere, just again, a much more healthy point. Giancarlo Fisichella, though, moves up into 8th place on 58 points. Johnny Herbert, who of course won the European Grand Prix that year at the Nürburgring, a crazy race. He's there, still inside the top 10 on 54 points. And Mika Salo, who only filled in for Ricardo Zonta at BAR for a few races, and then obviously for Michael Schumacher at Ferrari, still managed to pick up 51 points. So well done to him for that. Feels weird congratulating a driver for something that happened 20 years ago. Wow. Oh, God. But anyway, yes, Eddie Irvine, a Formula One world champion. He wasn't far away, was he, in the real world anyway in 1999? But he does take the title in this alternate reality. Now, it's clear that consistency was massively important for him in 1999, but also the fact that McLaren struggled so badly with reliability at times is the main reason why that has happened. But again, credit where credit is due. That's one of my favourite sayings. Looking at the Constructors' Championship, again, not much changing at the top. Ferrari would still have been champions ahead of McLaren and Jordan, but Williams would have moved up into 4th place ahead of Stewart, and Benetton would have made it 6 teams to score over 100. Other than that, the only other change is that BAR would have made it into the top 10 on 23 points, and Arrows would have been 11th on 18. What has this all taught us then? Well, it's proven that I have literally nothing better to do with my time. Then again, I love stuff like this, so yeah, I probably would have done it anyway, so I might as well make a video. In all seriousness though, what it does do is kind of back up why the point system was changed so dramatically and why it needed to be changed back in 2010. If nothing else, it just gave the midfield teams a chance to pick up some points and something to fight for. So although I know there are a lot of people out there who don't like the idea of lots of points being handed out, it at least gives people a chance to take something home at the end of a race. It also highlights how much more competitive the 1999 season was compared to 2019 as an example. And I'm not going to start the whole rose-tinted glasses, sunshine and rainbows, oh F1 was so much better in the old days, nonsense, because the fact is the 1999 season was more open because it was utter chaos at times. As I've already mentioned, McLaren had very poor reliability. Hakkinen made two big mistakes, Imola and Monza of course, that were both unforced and cost him dear. He was also put into a spin by his teammate in Austria, but recovered really well in that race. We also had a number of rain-affected races and qualifying sessions. Thinking back to France, where the top three were Barrichello, Alesi and Panis, I believe. Yes, it was, just checking now. And all of that had a massive impact, and not to mention the fact that we lost Michael Schumacher for most of the season. There was just so much going on right from that first race when the McLarens had all their problems there and Eddie Irvine took his first win, Frentzen second, Ralf Schumacher in third, all the way up until the finale where Eddie Irvine crashed out in qualifying. Just so many twists and turns. I mean, and I do mean this with all due respect, the fact that Frentzen finished third in the final standings kind of tells you all you need to know about 1999. As I've already said, it was a great season. If you haven't watched the season review, I highly recommend it. That is it then for this video. Honestly, this was just something completely random. I had no plans to do this at all. It just sort of happened. But let me know if you enjoyed it and if you'd like me to turn this into a sort of series, I guess. And if there's anything you'd like me to take away or add to videos like this, you can pop your comments, feedback and suggestions below. Don't forget as well that you can follow me over on social media and you can find all of the links you need for that in the description. But as ever, thank you for watching and I will catch you all in the next one. Bye-bye.